I don't know if we've done any since Winter Clash, have we? No.
No. Last one we
So we
did was December. We just talked a lot of shit on sk-
that
the skater of the
was
year concept and stuff. So
that was meant to be the first real putting out to the public one, and you
yeah,
vetoed it,
I
probably
vetoed
quite
it. We
rightly.
talked too much shit. The others, I actually did listen back, and because I got no patience with this kind of thing. I like once I've done something, I guess we'll come on to that with dumping skate clips straight on Instagram, whatever. But once I've done something, I don't have a lot of patience to kind of hold on to it. So it was actually quite
Yeah,
a good test, us doing a couple of test runs a few months back, because I did listen to them back and I didn't cringe. So
that's incredible. I don't think I
good to
could
go.
do it. I can kind of listen to them again immediately after if I need to edit anything. Not that we did any editing for this, but I've done kind of podcasty things or like little piece to camera things that I need to do for work. And sometimes you need to go back into them. And if I do it immediately, it's not too bad. But if I have to look at it like months down the line, I'm just like shut up. I just keep telling myself to shut up. Like, what are you talking about?
Just
But
gotta
it's
live with
fine.
it.
It's fine.
Gotta live with it.
Um, yeah, we do. Yeah, we can be okay. It's for everyone else to listen to. It's kind of everyone else's problem. Whoever everyone else
Don't
ends
care.
up being the three people. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. We're
Yeah.
making something. I was having this thought. I told Alex that I was maybe going to record with you today, and I hadn't really let slip that we'd done a few already because she might have been a bit like, "What are you doing with your time?" But and she's like, "All right, cool." Like, and the reading between the lines, it was a wee bit like, "Why?"
Why?
And
Yeah.
yeah, and there is that's that you can say that about anything, any podcast between two guys about any niche subject. Does the world need another one? But
No, it
then on
doesn't. It
it doesn't.
doesn't.
But on the
But
flip, I always encourage people to make things. Like making things is good. So
yeah,
hey, we're making a thing, you know?
that's it, man. That's exactly how I feel about it. It's just a thing.
Yeah,
Do it.
yeah. So do
Uh,
do we try to get any of the kind of context between who we are and why we're doing this or any of that out the way at the start and then we never need to do it again? Or do you just not want to do any? You don't want to,
I don't know.
you
I
just
don't.
want to,
I don't want to start off with an elevator pitch of,
yeah, sure.
you know.
And not even
I guess
establish
like
who you are or anything like that. You
no,
don't care.
but I think for context, I think we've only known each other for probably about a year and a half,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Um,
Um, and we have quite different histories with skating, but we probably share quite a lot of common, I don't know what, theory behind it.
theory, yeah,
We share
philosophy.
philosophy, that's a better word for it. We share a wee bit of that. And we disagree on things, and that's all quite an interesting. I guess we find it quite easy to talk about this kind of stuff in quite a grown-up way without,
If we say
with
so ourselves. But I
we
think
say so. So.
I guess just further bit of context, we both started mid-90s. You stopped for a
hmm
long time, became a
hmm
skateboarder
hmm
for a long time in Europe.
hmm
So you're a back to blader. Although I don't
Emma.
even know if I like that term. You've
No,
returned, you've come home.
I've been
Um,
back to blading longer than I did it the first time round.
right. When did you come back
But
to it?
20, oh, my daughter was just born, so she is 6, so kind of 6 years-ish,
Okay.
so 2017,
Yeah.
18-ish. I maybe got the skates in 2017, but it was winter time and then didn't really start doing it till 2018, that
So
summer,
you're not
maybe,
a
something like that.
pandemic back to blader. You're
No,
kind
I,
of.
I squeaked in just before that, and it all worked out not bad.
What was the pull? Why did you pick it back up?
Um, I think we talked about this before, but I found a cheap pair of K2s on Amazon.
But
I
why were
was
you looking?
just, I don't know, just one of these things. I just went down. I just found something on YouTube maybe. I definitely remember seeing Bobby Spassoff clips somehow,
Okay.
and it being the first thing I'd seen of rollerblading that like piqued my interest a wee bit.
Yeah.
And that just got me just searching about like what are skates nowadays, what is available, how much do they cost, any of this stuff. And I think I just started putting things into Amazon to see what would come up, and I probably put in K2 rollerblades or something, and a pair of Front Street came up, and they were some little thing, just pure freak. My size were available that had been returned but brand new in box kind of situation. So it was
Okay.
it was like under 100 quid for a pair of skates, and I'd just been paid from a job or something like that. And I was like, you know what, this is my little. Let's see if I can even still do it. And so I
That
just
that was
got
a
them.
good period for buying K2 shit, because I remember uh you could get the frame and their big wheel
Hmm.
frame on Amazon for like 20 quid at that time.
Yeah.
And I bought a bunch of them because they were good. I don't know, they
Hmm.
must have just been blowing it all out because they were leaving aggressive for the fourth time or whatever. Um,
Yeah.
what was that first trip out like for you?
I was incredibly self-conscious. I was living in Glasgow at the time, and I had been going to the skate park occasionally on a skateboard. Like that even had petered off over the course of living in Glasgow. I'd kind of stopped when we first moved back, and then kind of got into it on and off through there. But I was super, whatever little age period that covered, my kind of through my late 20s and early 30s little period, I was very self-conscious of like there being a cool club in Glasgow at the skate parks, and me feeling like I was very much this kind of wee towny beginner level guy because I'd lost all my stuff. And then add rollerblading as a thing on that. Like I was kind of still in like rollerblading is lame. I don't want anyone to see me doing that, particularly if I'm like, Bambi in it around.
So you
So
thought you thought it was lame and you bought a pair of skates and you went
yeah,
skating despite kind
yeah,
of feeling like it wasn't cool.
yeah. I just remember really enjoying it from when I was a kid, and I wanted to see how it would feel and if I could remember how to do it. It was kind of a wee personal test to see if I could still do it. So the very first session, I went out down. I kind of cycled miles because I knew there was going to be a quiet area down by the river in Glasgow. And it was the way I used to cycle to work. I used to work down near the BBC, and I knew there was all this kind of, there's all these just kind of officey buildings that were all pretty quiet at night. I knew there'd be a few kind of paths and roads that connect them all together that would be quiet enough and smooth. And it was pitch black. Yeah, it must have been quite wintry. So I waited for a dry night, and I just rolled about. And I remember it feeling okay, but I remember the main sensation I have from that time is like I tried to do like just a sole stall on a little curb that was there just to like feel out my feet and stuff, and it feeling like there was a real disconnect. Like it felt like the sole plate was like so like my foot was so far away from where I was expecting to lock. And it's just like this weird memory. And I was like, oh, that doesn't feel like I remember it. There was kind of, I was expecting one thing and I got a different thing. But beyond that, then I just started taking them up to the skate park. We had a little kind of prefab skate park that was the nearest one to me that was always going to be quiet. And there was a nice little period where the baby was really wee, but very predictable. She was a really
Yeah, yeah,
predictable sleeper. And I had no problem getting up early. So I could get up at like 5 or 6, go for an hour at the skate park and get
yeah, yeah,
back. And my wife and the baby were still sleeping. So I felt
yeah.
like I had no inconvenience to anyone. And I just slowly got into it. And then
That's
I
so
started
funny. I,
filming
I was doing the
things.
exact same thing at the exact same time. Just like
That's funny.
get
You
up
never quit
early.
though, did you? You
No,
never
no, I
quit.
didn't. I've had like I guess like ups and downs with it, but yeah, I remember that feeling of getting up with the baby early, hanging out for like an hour, and then he would need a nap within
Yeah,
like an
yeah,
hour of waking up, and I'd sort of like put him back in the bed with my wife while she was sleeping. I'd like out the door
yeah.
just down the skate park for like an hour. Um,
And it's kind of guilt-free session you get when you kind of know
Totally.
everyone's asleep anyway. So
Yeah,
yeah, what
yeah,
is
that's
they're
that's
they
that's free.
everyone else is doing exactly what they want to be doing.
Mm.
So it is completely free time.
So you didn't
Um,
grind on your first go back. How long was it before you started doing grinds? Was it session two or
yeah, whenever I first got them to the skate park, which must have been an early session, and there was a kind of box there. It's still I've skated it once since we moved back. I was through for a day. And it's like it's nothing. It's like knee high or something. The earliest clips on my Instagram will all be on this like
it's a metal
freestanding
one, isn't it?
kind of metal box. One side's coping and one side's just like a right angle. And it's a wee bit higher, certainly starting back. Like it's a fair, like it's kind of a higher ledge than any of the regular ones I skate now, which are all quite low. And I remember doing that and it feeling okay and thinking I was doing okay. I remember Royales being a massive problem, and that had always been my go-to trick. And I
Yeah,
found that very frustrating. Later found out that those skates were not the most beginner friendly. They're super stiff.
yeah,
Eventually got them, but that all must have tied into why I was filming myself because I'd never really seen myself skate before. So I started kind of doing the shoe cam thing quite early on. I'd already been doing that a little bit with skateboard stuff
right.
just to try and figure out, try and help me learn more quickly, like look back and see what I was doing wrong. And I started doing the same thing with skating. And I like it just revealed so much. It revealed I was stepping on to everything and all of this kind of stuff. And I was like, all right, way back in 1997, was I stepping on to everything or was I just better? Who
Got no way of
knows?
knowing. Like
No way of knowing at all.
there's no way of. I just think about how many like hundreds of maybe hundreds of thousands of hours of skating that I've done, where there's
Yeah.
just no record, no camera, no nothing. Um,
That's the way it has to be, though. It has to be like that, though.
no, but it's just like I'd kill to see some of the stuff that we were doing back then, but it just wasn't even remotely. The world was different. Like you
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
people were there rather
Yeah.
than there's a lot of people skating on their own and kind of filming. I guess is some kind of way of like you know sharing some of that with
Yeah.
with your
Yeah.
mates.
But you slowly got into it. So there will be clips of you from your whole, like, since you got good, you would have started filming, I would imagine.
Yeah, there's kind of bits and pieces from different eras. There's like a big chunk that's missing.
Hmm.
Um, there's some pretty early stuff in like Blue Solomons. So that's like
Hmm. Hmm.
98, 99. Um, and incidentally, some of that is filmed by my friend Matt, who stopped skating about the same time you did, or a bit later, because I guess you stopped
Hmm.
kind of late-ish 90s, and I think he made it to about 2000, 2001.
Sure.
And he's a back to blader kind of pandemic era, and I see him all the
That's
time now.
Matt from Winter
Matt
Clash,
from
yeah.
Winter Clash,
Yeah, I
yeah.
like Matt
So
a lot.
I've got footage of me and him skating in 98, 99, 2000. And then there's a really big gap to kind of, I guess, like 2000. I don't know. Uh, I'm riding Remedies. So
Hmm. Hmm.
I don't know. The
I
first
assume.
UFS ones, I don't know when that was. 2003, I think.
Hmm.
Um, but it's patchy. Like you only got filmed then by someone who like had a camera
Hmm.
and wanted to point it at you, and who at any point would have condensed what was on those tapes in a way that could be shared. I'm sure there's
Yes.
footage of me skating that's on in a shoebox somewhere that I'll never see.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I've got skating in a shoebox that no one will ever see. I've tried to capture it, but I don't have the stuff. I've just like filmed it off the screen with my phone and shared it with people. Um, it's funny to think about how much didn't
Even that,
get
even
documented.
then though, I bet your experience with skating would be so different because you were at a level where other people would be filming. Like if anyone was filming us skating, our little crew, it was so much more related to like a bunch of wee kids just going out on bikes. We would just go out on skates and we'd kind of have a few videos and know roughly what we're doing, but we were quite disconnected. I'm from Stirling, which is a town in the middle of Scotland, but we never ventured into the cities. We never like really
No.
intermixed with anyone who was doing it for realsies. We were just like that. We just went essentially to play at the skate park. And
But
if there
I think
was,
that's true for me too in the early days. Like,
yeah,
no one was coming to film us. It was like one of my friends was quite rich, and so his
hmm
parents had like the one off Home Alone. I don't know if you remember the
yeah,
one,
yeah,
right? Did have
yeah.
the screen on the side anyway. Oh yeah, you flipped it round like this, didn't you? So he had that, and at some point, but yeah, it was a long time after that before we started mingling with people that were kind of legitimate good skaters, and then Joe Spray, um, got his first camera, and it started to become quite cool to film
hmm
and
hmm
share clips and stuff. But that was quite a long time later. That was like well into the 2000s, I suppose.
Yeah. There is one little bit of footage there. I'm thinking of it that I keep kind of blocking from my memory though. It would be interesting to see. It's living at my mum's house. My friend and I started a bit of a petition to get the skate park extended, and we got a feature on CBBC. We got a kind
Oh
of
my
Scottish
God, I'd love to see that.
Scottish Gail Porter introduced it. We didn't get to meet Gail though. She kind of cut away, and we got a day with like this wee BBC crew came to the skate park,
Oh,
and
my
we're doing all
days.
this kind of talking to the camera stuff, and then there's wee bits of skating in there.
Are you in it?
Um, I'm in it, yeah. I'm one of the two guys. It's awful. Like I remember,
Who's got that footage? Like where do
I've
we?
I've got it. It's on a VHS,
Oh
like at my
my
mum's
God,
house.
you have
Like
to
yeah.
share that, man.
I know I don't have it. I need to send it off to one of these converter guys because I keep toying with like, oh, I'll get the kit to. Nobody's even got a player to plug into a telly that I know, but like it's still there. It should still be fine. It was called Up for It, and I remember they put like ain't talking about ain't talking about Dub, that whoever did that song, that real kind of
Yeah,
night,
no,
yeah,
that's so
that
funny
would like
because I one of my first bits of skate media that I've got on tape, and I actually filmed it off the screen. I put it on YouTube. It was the Jagger family at Rehab, and it's got that
yep,
same song. Ain't talking about it. So it's edited to that, and it's their top three tips for
yeah,
it was like Live and Kicking or something, and I reckon that must have been '96.
hmm.
And I watched that video kind of.
You would cling on to the little bits
Oh
you
my
could
God.
get off the telly, wouldn't you?
I could still remember it probably like word for word. I wonder how many hundreds of times I watched that bit. Some of the skating in it's quite sick actually, but it's very like of its time, like huge knee pads, like puberty jeans, um, oxygen argons. Like it's a real time capsule. I'll send
Yeah,
you it after this because it's a real moment.
yeah. There's three of them, wasn't there? There was a wee Toti one. What was the youngest one? It was Dean and Ben, and then there was a wee Toti one.
Lee Lee
Lee,
Jagger.
that's right.
He's tiny in it, man. He's like
Yeah,
7 or something.
yeah.
When the elbow pad meets the wrist guard, there's no break. It's that,
And then the giant t-shirt sleeve covers half of the elbow pad as well.
Yeah,
So it's just like you've just got yeah, down to the wrist guard, you've just got a whole RoboCop arm
it's
sticking
amazing.
out. Yeah.
And like
And the
it's
knee
like the top
pads
five
touch the
tips.
skate.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
knee pads are like right on the cuff. It's amazing. And there's a bit where they're like, you always need to wear your pads, and then it cuts, and it's this girl just sort of standing on the side of the she's standing on the side of the skate park. She's like fully padded up with a bike helmet on. And I was like, why did they use that shot? That's such a that's such an
Yeah.
unkind shot.
They and
She
they would
doesn't
they
look
would
like she's
all
happy at all.
they would always edit those things. Like the editor would or the filmer, like it was very rare to get a thing where like you got the takeoff and landing of anything
Yeah,
in one
yeah,
shot. Like it'd be lots of people like they want you to jump over the camera and
yeah,
stuff like that,
yeah. That's it.
flying
Jump over
through
the
that. You just
camera.
Yeah, and it's always the kind of clips that end up on like a Visit Scotland kind of, those tourist things. It's like we've got so much going on here, and it'll have a clip of like a skateboard just flying over the camera, a clear
Yeah, yeah.
bale
And like
just
you know that
going.
they didn't land it, not even remotely close.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's not hard to see. It's not hard to understand, like looking back on it, why I thought it was so cool.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, there's something that just felt very like really
Wait,
exciting about
wait,
it.
why did you get skates in the first place? Just because it was the boom and
I don't
everyone
know.
had some.
I always had like rec skates. My parents must have got us some when I was like, the very first wave, like probably 93 or something,
Hmm.
just like straight out of the Argos catalog, proper shit skates, plastic wheels, like, um, and then where we lived in, so I grew up in Didcot, which is just
Hmm.
outside Oxford. It's just quite a kind of boring town. It was quite cool as we got older to like go to Oxford and go to the ice rink.
Hmm.
That was the cool thing to do. And so we used to go ice skating quite a lot. And that made me want to kind of use rollerblades the rest of the
Yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah.
Um, the ice rink was where you meet girls, and you know, not that we ever spoke to them, they were just there. I think that was just the exciting thing, is just like other people were there, and you weren't in your town anymore. And I was quite good at skating, so was my brother and his mates. So it was quite fun to just kind of bomb around and like,
Hmm.
you know, that
Yeah.
that movement, that motion has always just felt really really natural. And I remember seeing the first time someone was grinding. Well, maybe it's the first time I got a magazine, and people doing royales, and I didn't know about the front side. And I
Hmm.
was like, cool, they've taken the middle wheels out, so fine. And I sort of dig out my old skates from the garage, and they still fit. And I took the middle wheels out. So now I'm riding anti-rocker on a kind of like plastic leather rec skate, that's got a cuff that does nothing.
The
And my
frame's
neighbor,
got a giant gap between
yeah,
like the hole, like the cutaway kind of
yeah,
hole, so it's
yeah, yeah,
even
yeah. Like you
weaker
could
than it.
grind through it in one,
Yeah, yeah.
one thing. And my neighbor had like a driveway with stones, so he had this kind of coping around the driveway. It's like perfect coping shape, like And I remember putting soap on it to wax it up. And I didn't know about the front side, so I was like, Royale, that's the first one. And
Wow.
mate, I just ate it so bad. And it was the middle of, the evening in the dark, and I've just landed on my hip, and I was like, got to do this. This is my thing now. Um, it's like really powerful stuff. Just being like a bit of an in-betweener kid
Yeah,
in Didcot, just suddenly latching on to something that's quite exciting.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But you
And
got fed up of
who
it, and you moved on.
I got fed up of it when it was just a wee perfect storm of skateboarding having a moment. It was
Yeah,
all it was all the kind of proper. I got into skateboarding before the first Tony Hawk game, but that just like cemented it as a kind of like, oh right, I can play a game of this new thing that I'm into now and all this, and
mm,
when I'm not, it just all worked out perfectly. And it all worked out with like it started lining up with me going to study art, and then suddenly I was discovering that, oh, like Spike Jones, and like you start hearing, oh, he was a skateboard guy, like all this kind of
yeah.
stuff. Just my little world was just kind of telling me that skateboarding was really cool, and it that coincided with rollerblading just going in a direction that I had no interest in whatsoever. Really, the kind of the quite well, it is well documented that era.
Yeah,
You kind of you either went with it or you didn't, I suppose, and I most definitely didn't. Um,
it's
and
a
that's
really
part,
really weird time to try and sort of keep it up
yeah,
through. You had to be like really, I don't know. You either had to really choose it, or you just had to have nothing else to go to. Like
yeah,
either
yeah,
way, like you're staying on that track. Definitely a
yeah.
weird and quite difficult time. Um, oh,
But
we run. Are we running out of
it
time?
probably
Have we got 10
um,
minutes? That's fine.
10 minutes, yeah. Yeah. Aye, but then like regardless of all that, like would you have predicted you would be still doing it post 40? You wouldn't give it thought, I suppose, when
No,
you're that young. I certainly didn't give it a thought.
well,
Um
VG20, can't remember what year that was, but it was ages ago. It had a like an OG section, and all the
mhm.
guys in there are like late 20s, and they're like, these guys are pretty old.
Yeah.
Um, no, no way. And like I think about it all the time, like what's the lifespan of skating? Because I'm already way past the point where I thought I'd be able to do it. And actually, in
Hmm.
some ways, I still think there's whether I'll become a better skater over time, I don't know, but I can get better at different bits of it, or I can explore them in a really satisfying way for what feels like quite a long time to
Yeah.
go, as long as
Yeah.
I'm lucky and healthy and that kind of stuff. So 40 just felt like ridiculous. Like no way would
Hmm.
you skate at 40. Um, but then skateboarding's kind of paved the way for some of that. You've got quite old dudes, our skate park here, you know, you go there at any point of the weekend and there's like a grip of men our age with kids
Hmm.
who
Hmm.
seemingly spend the whole day at the skate park Saturday and Sunday. Um, so it's kind of normalized now. I think you'd look like a real weirdo if you were skating at 40 in the year 2000. I think
Yes,
it'd be
yes,
unheard
probably.
of.
I there's that what you've been talking about reminding me of two things. So the first one, you mentioned, I think just today, I saw you had written it was something about how many sessions do you think you've got left in you? It was and you said like, it was in some kind of
Yeah,
context like, and that's a scary thought because you could probably do a pretty good estimate of how often you get out a week,
yeah.
how many weeks a year you can get out due to weather, how that might slow down over time. You can probably put a nice ballpark number on
I think you
how
could.
many more times you're going to skate, and that can be miserable. Like I was thinking back to when I first started back the other day. I was talking to Alex about it, and I was like, all right, I started back at whatever I would have been 35 and remember feeling old then,
Yeah, yeah,
like feeling, oh God, I wish I'd started this. Like, but now sitting at nearly 41, I'm like, God, I wish I was 35 again. Like,
yeah,
I want those 5 years back to,
yeah.
because, yeah.
And no,
Which
it is
that's just how
weird.
time works, though. That's just how time works. It's not even that much of a thing. It's just,
But if you were kind of into like playing the guitar,
hmm
right, you can literally do that till the day you die, provided
yeah.
you stay kind of, you know, you, you're sort of lucky and healthy or whatever. But yeah, skating, there's a lot of people that are one fall away from never doing it again. There's a lot
That's
of
what
people like
yeah,
they're going to
yeah,
fall one time on their wrist or their knee or their shin, and that is it. They're done. And um, that kind of death rate in skating compared to our kind of birth rate as well, from an
yeah,
industry perspective, must be pretty scary because there's no way we're not going off a cliff. I mean, I'm
yeah,
just sat here kind of making that assumption. I don't know any kind of numbers or anything, but that in itself is one ratio that for me just feels like it has to be off. But for me
yeah,
personally, like, yeah, I don't know. I'm scared to run the numbers, but whatever number you think it is, it's less than that.
yeah.
Um, because you
And
just never know.
outside of wheels, depending on how much of a stash you're sitting on, you could probably use. I certainly could use the kit I've got lying about for the rest of my skate career. It would all be fine, I
Yeah,
wouldn't need
man.
to buy anything else. And yet here I'm kind of just always looking to spend money on something. Just
Yeah, I don't mind spending money on this kind of shit, but I would rather wear it out and
yeah,
replace
that's you.
it than
That's your
just
new
kind of
philosophy, isn't it?
100%. I
It's
think the
maybe not your
rules,
new philosophy. You've dug down on it though. You're just like, right, you got to knacker your stuff.
I
Like
think you
that's
shouldn't,
the
I think we should be proud of knackering the stuff, right? I think that's like, the whole thing we do is just like basically just wrecking our skates in a
Yeah.
variety of creative ways. I think we should be proud of wrecking them. I actually think having like a real luxury setup is a bit cringe now. Like I've started to look at that as just like it's its own separate hobby almost, but
Yeah.
it doesn't do anything for me. Like I'd much rather see like a real fucked up pair of skates that someone's like worked. I think
This
about
this
Leon
should,
Humphreys posted a picture of brand new pair of thems with like a brand new pair of like adapt symmetrics frames, like the most like luxury setup. It's like Danny Beers with these like, you know, I think the comment was just like, "Oh, the things I'm going to do to you," like, and I was
oh
just like, "That's
God.
so cool," because I bet he just like tears
Yeah,
through
he
skates.
absolutely,
A couple of
absolutely.
months and they're toast, and I think that's great. We shouldn't be proud of this stuff. We should wreck it and move on.
Yeah, yeah. I agree, and most of my stuff ends up pretty beat up, just because
Yeah,
of the spots I have, and the fact that I skate anti as well. Like, just means I don't care about like preserving any kind of wheel bite protection or any of that that might mean that I get through
yeah.
frames on a like more steadily or something. So all any frame I skate regularly is pretty deep grooved and
No,
stuff,
your stuff
and
looks
that's
pretty
all
thrashed. I
fine.
reckon you,
I
but
passed
you
the
know,
test. I
yeah,
passed
I
the
don't know,
damn.
like,
But I do.
I
What I get? Sorry, what I get is a kind of a worry that I'll not be able to get it. So I want duplicates of everything. So I've got two
yeah,
pairs of
yeah,
ridders now. I bought a pair of ridders off of Nathan, just because like, oh right, what happens if these ones go?
yeah.
I want them again, that's my fear, but I still want to skate them,
Well, you
So
built a
it's
wardrobe around that pair of skates as well, right? You know what trousers go with them. You know what wheels are going to look all right. No,
everything goes with them. They're the best skates.
no,
Everything
that's
goes
such
just
a good
fine with
skate. That is like if they did another
them.
run of them, well, I think they took a long time to sell, but
Yeah, yeah.
I think that's a colorway that you could have forever. But I don't know, man. I think it's good to not be precious over this sort of stuff. And I get that mentality of wanting to try different things, but I don't know
Hmm.
if you really have tried it until you've thrashed it a bit.
Yeah,
I see so many skates and they're like skated it for 4 hours and then they're flogging it on Blade Trade, and I'm like, man, like my first pair of Solomons, I skated them for probably like 2 years.
yeah, yeah.
I didn't even need to like them at first. It didn't matter whether I liked them at first. You were just gonna that was you were fucked. You were in the, you were with this pair of skates, and you had to save up all your birthdays and Christmases to try and get the next pair.
Yeah.
Um,
Have you done any prep for this? I know we've got a document on the go with things that like I saw there was some kind of like style guide situation going on. That felt very organized. I hadn't looked at it in
style guide.
ages. Was that
Do you
me
know
or
it
was that
was
you?
right?
No, that was you, I think.
I think we did a bit each, but
Okay,
I was
okay.
just like, what I don't want to do is get stuck in the trap of like talking shit on anyone or just
Yeah.
getting a bit carried away. I think it's good to critique skating,
Hmm.
but I don't think it's good to critique skaters.
No,
Um,
because
but
we'll get immediate hate. We could have three viewers, and if you slag off the wrong person, suddenly your DMs are going to blow up with.
I don't want to go to Winter Clash and get punched. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You should you.
because a lot of it is kind of meaningless, right? It's like when I watch skating and I don't like it,
Hmm.
if I'm talking to someone, I'll talk up why I didn't like it, or and sometimes I can just be a bit blunt, and um, but none of it matters. What I'm much
No.
more interested in is the stuff that I like and I get
Hmm.
really excited by. The stuff that I don't like, I don't really think about it unless someone asks me what I think about it, or if we're just kind of talking. Um, there's so much good skating out there. There's no real reason to watch stuff that doesn't vibe well.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a
But
lot. There's a lot of stuff that doesn't vibe well with me. But that's no one else's fault. That's a me thing, I think.
no, no. There's a wee problem I think skating has. Like this is immediately getting negative, but I'll try and Certainly not calling anyone out. There's a slight problem in that I don't often see skating that maybe isn't my bag, but like presented well, if that makes sense. Like there's a thing everyone's been talking about recently that is an example of that, but it's in almost every other creative field, I can like look at work by an illustrator and go like, look, that's not my thing. That kind of whatever it could be, that Tim Burton style illustration is not my thing. But I can tell like that is done really well. They're putting it out in the
Yeah,
world
yeah,
into
yeah,
in a really good way and all of that. And then there's a lot less of that, I feel. And it's a numbers problem a little bit, and it's a money
yeah.
problem a little bit. But I kind of almost wish there was a wee bit more of stuff that wasn't for me, but I would also be like, oh, but it's really well done. It's kind of like
I can
anything
tell.
that,
Yeah, you can tell that it's good.
yeah.
I
And
think the last thing I saw that didn't vibe with me really well, but I recognized it was really good, was the Ilya
the
edit for
the,
his race, the clown
the
one.
clown one, yeah,
And
that's a good
we talked about that
example.
a little bit
Yeah,
at the time, and I was like, yeah, look, this isn't for me. This is for a different audience, but I actually think, you know, he nailed it with that.
yep,
It's
yep.
I've gone back and I've watched it just out of interest, like how did it age?
Hmm,
You know,
hmm.
just remind myself what was in it. Um,
More
I
like,
think it's tricky though, because like skating doesn't have a lot of money.
no,
And I think we probably try and benchmark ourselves against industries that have got more money.
hmm,
And so
hmm,
people feel compelled to try and mirror some of the kind of cultural kind of flags
yeah,
that are popular.
yeah.
Um, and unless you kind of really nail it, that stuff can kind of end up coming off a bit cheap or just not landing well. I don't really know what the answer is, but I think Ryan Gillett at City Life has got a really cool thing. I don't know if you watch much of his stuff, but it's just quite sort of he leans into this kind of low budget,
Yeah,
sort
yeah.
of snappy editing. It's this the skating is really, really good, but it's not like, you know, hammers and stuff. It's just hanging with the crew.
Hmm, hmm.
And that feels really authentic.
Yep.
But when you try and kind of get cinematic, it
There should be people doing the cinematics. So I agree. Like there's a real danger of certainly with me of just being like, oh, if it's not, kind of quick cut and low fi and all kind of homemade and raw feeling, then I can just immediately go like put the drone away kind of thing. But no, like there should like some people should be out there using drones really well, and some people should be out there using slow-mo really well and presenting it and all. And the Ilya,
well, Butter TV does it really well, right? I think he's got quite a cool, fairly high production value
hmm,
behind
hmm,
his stuff. It
hmm,
feels quite raw, but it's also got that kind of gloss to it that kind of makes things look quite professional. I could see that on like, you know, on the telly, on like, you know, on like
oh,
Red Bull TV or something, you
yes.
know. I could see it because I think he does that really, really well. I think it's when it's
Who did the Joe Atkinson, not the recent one, not the Pud, but the was it the San Francisco one where it was quite glossy
that was
or
Ivan. Yeah,
yeah, that was kind of a good balance of it, I think. You're getting all the light
I
leaks and the
loved that.
slow-mo and all of that kind of stuff. Is that and
He
who
used
did
a real fancy camera for that, I think. But you could have filmed that with anything. You could do that
yeah,
with a phone, and
yeah.
it's actually his vision, and it's Joe just being Joe
Hmm.
that made that. I think the camera kind of added the right sort of sheen, but even the song for that just kind of it all just perfect little storm of magic that just
Yeah.
made that proper exceptional.
Hmm, hmm, hmm. So
John
that's
Lee
good.
does it really well, you know, kind of actually kind of more high production than you'd think, just because he's so good at filming. And generally, the skaters that he films are kind of really good and varied, that despite the fact that it comes across quite gritty and lo-fi, it's actually way more considered in like a really cool and like under the radar way.
Hmm.
I really rate that. I think that's like a really cool way of looking at our culture.
And of course, talking about gloss without going into a whole tangent on it, like Brain God was about as glossy as you can get as well. Which was another,
Yeah,
but like a nice play on that. It wasn't, it was quite in a, like, you don't often see it. It was more glossy in the way that some kind of, who was the, like that kind of aggressive way you would use glossy stuff. Who's the guy who did like all the really high sheen music videos? Like he did Dirty, Christina Aguilera, and he did like, he's a fashion guy, and it's like that using that high end, but in a
I know
really,
you mean.
really
Yeah,
grimy. He was a photographer. Anyway,
yeah, yeah.
put it in show
I
notes.
know exactly who you're thinking
LaChapelle,
of.
David LaChapelle. I want to say maybe somebody like that, but like it had that kind of vibe, which is, you don't see that as often. You usually see high sheen, and it's going to be sunsets and light leaks in slow motion, and seeing high gloss used in a kind of grubby way was, it was quite nice, and quite a dissonant, aggressive way was quite nice to see.
Yeah, I totally agree. It was kind of meant to be really jarring
Hmm.
in, I think, in lots of ways, that video, and it landed in exactly the way that you would expect. For people that kind of caught the vibe of it, I think they really like it. I really like that video. I
Yeah.
think I'm just a huge fan of someone really committing to a project and a vision and making it happen. And I think I
Hmm.
would hope that even if that wasn't for you, that's the kind of thing that you could look at and be like, it's not for me, but I can tell that it's really good. But
Yes. Yeah.
I don't think it did. I don't think it
No.
landed like that with people that didn't like it.
But that's okay.
Um,
That's probably means it's a success in a funny way. Um, what else have you seen that you're excited by right now? Can you think?
yeah, I'm so overwhelmed with like skate stuff at the
Hmm.
moment, and it feels like for a couple of years I was in like a skate crisis, and then all of a sudden I'm watching all the stupid reviews about gear that I don't care about and I don't want. And I finished watching the video and I'm like, that's 10 minutes I've just wasted. Um, and then I'm signing up to things on Patreon to kind of, yeah, and I'm trying to pull myself away from a lot of that kind of nonsense. Last thing I watched that I thought was really good was Gig 2. That's like Bratty,
Hmm. Hmm. Is that the
Danny
one? Is
Dia,
that the one with no
Brian
music?
Long.
Was that just the kind of
No
log?
music,
Yeah,
and it's
right.
just
A raw
fucking
cut. Yeah,
rippers doing cool tricks. And yeah, I think those guys have got like a really good thing going. I thought that was, it made me really really want to go and skate, and it made me
yeah,
want to, you know film some tricks and get out and skate with other people more. And I just thought that was a really cool. No music is like a choice, it's a real choice. Your audio's got to be pretty spot
yes.
on for that to work.
It was kind of presented as a bit of a kind of almost a rough cut though. If you're presenting, because
Mm.
it was longer than their usual kind of quite tightly edited thing, so you get away with it in that. If you were trying to do like a real part with no music, like that's a bold choice. That's like filming a part wearing all white. Like you're making a bit of a statement. You know what I mean by that?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
you're putting yourself. There was a guy used to skate. I wouldn't even say the skate park, because you can. There was a kind of hometown hero that always used to skate in all white, and it's like he was the king of the park, and he always wore all
yeah.
white, and it's like, ugh, like that's, there's very few people who should be should be allowed to do that, and yeah, so
King of the Park is a really interesting character type.
yes.
There's certain skate parks you go there like 24/7, and there's this one guy there. And I don't know if he still goes because I haven't been to the park in ages, but in Hackney there's Victoria Park, and in Victoria Park there's this big skate park, and most people recognize it because it's got Ben Raymer's um,
Yes. And the
painted in the
and the
cradle.
Credo, yeah.
And there's a BMXer there, and he's such a dickhead. He's
You're
like got
you're
proper
talking
mate.
shit, Dan. You're talking shit.
I don't care if he sees this. If he sees it, he can fight me. But he's got proper main character thing. Like he moans at people for waxing. He moans at little kids, and I'm like, my dude, it's Saturday afternoon.
Yeah,
The biggest play park in Hackney is right next to the skate park. Of course, it's overrun with scooters. You just have to go home. Like this is not your time. Actually, getting frustrated with kids on scooters on a Saturday afternoon,
it's the
you're the
worst.
problem
Yeah,
at that
it's
point. And my
it's
my my eldest kid really like he won't go there anymore because he's like he got shouted at by that guy. Um,
it's shouting at
just proper
kids like
like it's
it's.
such an interesting character type. Is like king of the skate park character.
Hmm.
It's a it's a
Hmm.
it's a real like type.
And you can see how it happens. You can see the evolution, and you can there's often a moment where the the character or few characters at a skate park go from being like the super cool club to like looking quite sad if they're still clinging on a wee bit. You know what I mean? Like they're still kind of,
Yeah,
especially you see it with skateboarding because these there's enough numbers that these guys get older and older and older, and the young kids come up, and young kids have completely different interests in everything. Like they look different, they're
yeah,
wearing different clothes, they're doing different tricks, and you see like the chip on the shoulder of the person who was like, "This used to be my turf," and some people just can't let go. It is skate parks
yeah.
are so interesting.
And they're like,
There's
go educate these kids on like etiquette of the skate park. And I'm like, yeah, or maybe it's all just changed and this is just how it is now. Everyone
Mhm,
just snakes each other and that's just the way that it is. Like there's a there's a couple of really sound guys that are kind of king of the skate park here, but they're
mhm.
kind of king of the skate park in a nice way. You know, they get down early and they sweep it and they know the park keepers, so you know the whole place is quite tidy. And they do kind of gently encourage people to take turns and tell parents not to let their kids run on the park. But again, it's just like Saturday afternoon, you
Yeah,
know, Sunday afternoon, maybe it's got to let it go. I don't know.
yeah, yeah. It is what it is, and yeah, it that's one of the nice things about. Well, it's frustrating about being a grown up is like you can go there at night time if you want to, and it's not like you can stay out past the kids' bedtime and stuff, and
Yeah,
all of that is fine. Yeah, I don't get it. I tend to at the local park. I tend to keep myself to myself because I'm there by myself mostly, because I can get there in about 5 minutes from my house. And so I'm just if I get a moment, I go there, and I'll say hello to people, keep myself to myself. But any interactions, I'm always like aware, like people see me here a lot. I just don't want to be like, oh, here
maybe
come.
you're king of the park, Dave.
Maybe I'm king of, but well, if I'm king of the park, I try hard not to be a dick. Like I don't want people. All right, here comes this guy who's gonna, give everyone a row. Like what is that? Like you don't want you
Your
want to.
park looks really fun though, man. Like I've seen so many clips of you skating that one. Um, and the loading bay looks really good. Like you've
Loading
got a
Bay's
nice
good
little
fun.
spot where you are where you can just kind of fish out to a couple of different. You've got
Yeah,
some street spots, you've got some good parks.
it's
Scotland's got good cash. Like Dave McNamara's posting about really sick looking skate parks all the time that are just
yeah,
popping up out of nowhere.
yeah. He seems to have a nice little. He's got the motivation to go. I had the motivation to go further afield a little bit that has gone away just with how much of a juggler family stuff is.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah, he seems to have a nice combination of whether he's clever with his time off or whether he's clever with home life or whatever, but he seems to be able to like, I'm going here, I'm going to be here for a nice amount of time and can justify it.
yeah,
As soon as I'm adding half an hour worth of driving onto a session, that's you're writing off almost a whole day just because of that. Because
yeah,
driving any distance, you want to be there for a length of time that makes it worth it. You're there for
yeah,
that amount of time, you're coming home. There's always something that like you always forget to factor in putting on the skates and getting to the car sometimes adds another 15 minutes to everything,
Yeah.
you know. And
And I always overrun as well because I'll be
yeah,
like, I just want to get one more thing. I'm always going to run any session I do like right to the wire.
yeah,
If I go skating at lunchtime and I'm like, I've got to be back for 1:30 or whatever, I'll be, I'll be in Tottenham like 15-minute cycle away, and it's sort of I got 17 minutes, and I'm
yeah.
like getting my skates off, sweating, thinking I've got to have a shower when I get home, and
Yeah.
and I'm always going to run it to the edge like that, and so there's no way that I want to kind of get in the car and go for ages. It's a bit easier at the moment because my eldest has started scooting again.
Hmm.
So if I bring him, if he gets in the car with me, and me and Matt might go off to a park or something, it
Yeah.
feels a bit more like I've got one of the kids, so
Yes. Yeah. That
different
that
different roles.
that might come from me. It might come from me with the little one. Our skate park is not super little kid friendly. Like there's kind of no area that you can use. Even if you're using the teeniest hills at it, you're kind of crossing the path of where everyone wants to go and stuff like that. So yeah, it's any kids that use it are either getting in the way in a way that I wouldn't be happy with them doing just because it's not safe for anyone,
Yeah,
or they're little kids who are just like super bold little kids who are just chucking themselves around, and that's fine in a different way. But the wee one's too wee for it. The wee one's showing signs that she might be the type. The big one's not. She's much like more timid with stuff like that. But yeah, maybe in talking about this, the time thing though, talking about this, like maybe in a few years, like what is my skating even going to? Am I going to be sick of this in a few years? Who knows? It's all
I don't know, man. You found like a really nice pocket in skating where you're I don't know, you kind of like you found a level that kind of works for you, and you're just kind of spreading from there. You're kind of
yeah.
doing a sort of like horizontal thing rather than like a vertical thing, And there's real longevity in skating, quite smart.
Hmm.
Got
Hmm.
like a really like quite a safe way of learning tricks and
Hmm.
expanding your kind of repertoire. And I think you skate enough that probably little falls don't affect you quite as much as someone that skates like once a month or something. Do you
Yeah.
fall over? I've never seen you fall over.
Oh, I do fall over, but I'm quite good. Like I deliberately like I skate and I know what I'm capable of. I do find that I'm quite good at saving myself from falls because I'm not on anything big. I'm going quite slow. A lot of my falls that would be if the obstacle were bigger or if I were going faster, it would be more smart to like roll out of it. But
Right.
I can kind of get a foot down and save myself. So I do a lot of kind of keeping myself upright where other people maybe would just go into kind of hit the deck in a safe way, like a learn to fall
Yeah.
kind of way. But that's all
Don't know
fine.
if I
Like it's it my the only way it's the only way I can skate because I'm not really going to get much braver than I am. Probably still slowly getting better at skating. I'm in okay shape as well. That's the other thing I can control a little bit.
You're
Is
looking good, man.
I'm better shape than I've been in my 30s certainly, which was is a good thing. But problem solving is always a thing. Like it appeals to me in my work. It appeals to me kind of in every aspect of something. And so skating to me is like I've got this little range of skills. I've got this little bag of skills. I've got this little bag of obstacles that I can even step up to. And what can I do within that that also appeals to me? Because there's a whole range of stuff I could start getting into. You know, I could be getting into hot dog grinds and getting into learning negatives and stuff like that. But that's not so that's almost like I'm kind of self-limited as well, like sticking to very narrow little things. But that appeals to me, working within limitation. I think that's why I'm
Yeah.
an okay designer and illustrator is working to briefs. Like you get good
Yeah.
stuff out when you've got a lot of limitations imposed on me. I want people to tell me like you can only use these two colors and like it needs to be
Yeah.
this size and all of that is
My
totally
wife's
fine
exactly
by
the
yeah.
same. Like when she's got free reign, she's kind of paralyzed by choice. But when
Yep.
a client gives her a brief, it's just
Yeah,
She just nails it.
it's pushing
Like,
against that is the fun part. For
but we
a
were talking with Chris Moosdale about
Mhm.
he was sort of talking about how he's just a bit burnt out on skating and just been skating the same ledge, and we were talking about just this idea of like collecting the grinds. Like it's fun for a bit to just sort
Yeah.
of collect all the grinds, and but actually like you can do the grind or you can like use the grind. You can use I know we talk about grinding quite a lot. Rollman's quite grinding focused, but
hmm
like using the grind to open up something in the spot, I think that's more interesting than doing the grind on the thing that's designed
Yes.
to be grinded, or just using that grind for the feeling of doing the grind rather than
Or
I don't know.
adding something. And I don't I like I find myself playing around with all sorts of silly ways of getting out of grinds right now, stepping out of them and doing daft wee kicks. And some of them are definitely gimmicky, and I'm kind of like, that's but like even that is enough for me to like I've got a soul grind here. What can I even do with that? Like
Yeah, yeah.
a normal ledge and a normal soul grind. Is there something to be done with that? Is quite an interesting. But I forget the name of the skater. I shared it recently, and it was a bit of a Colin Martin style move that really appeared to me. Where did you see? I shared it. Somebody guy with a lot of hair, mustache maybe soul grind and did that kind of anti-gravity thing where his feet
No, yeah, yeah, yeah.
dropped down below the ledge and pulled them back up. Like
Crazy. Yeah,
that kind of stuff, it's like probably been done somewhere before, but like that kind of like, you know, you're playing with a ledge and a soul grind and you found
yeah.
something to do with it
I
that
thought that was
is,
so sick, and just the idea like people have been soul grinding ledges for 30 years.
yep.
I've been soul grinding ledges for the best part of that time, and then this kid just does something that's literally just the soul grind on a ledge, but he does this little whoop and
But
comes
like,
back onto it. I was like,
it,
how cool is that?
probably either directly or indirectly inspired by like the stuff you see on social media of people, you know, you'll jump over the bowl of water and try and dip your toe in it
Yeah,
as you
yeah,
like, oh,
yeah,
like it's all in that kind of little world, isn't it? So like
yeah.
pulling a funny influence from somewhere like that,
And there's
adding it
someone
to
like Colin Martin's got a lot to answer for that sort of stuff. I
yeah,
think he's, again, whether you're into it or not, it sort of doesn't matter. I'd hope that anyone would look at what he's doing and be like, it's really beneficial to all of us that he's doing this, and you
yeah,
can kind of take from it what you want. I remember
yeah.
the first time I saw him do that like Mizu slide thing. Did you see that? I was
I,
like, is this clip in slow motion or something? Like in reverse? I just couldn't break my brain, but it's like this weird illusion thing. And like, I'm really
lots of that.
grateful to someone like him and like Scott Blackmore, and there's a whole grip of people that have just decided to take these fundamentals and just fuck around with them in a really interesting way. Like
That
it just there's so much longevity in skating by
mhm,
just kind of popping around with that sort of stuff. Um,
yeah. And that is the kind of creativity that when you talk about creative skating, that's the kind of thing that appeals over what a lot of people resort to of like get my feet into an awkward some kind of awkward grind position like that's or like a kind of novelty grind or some kind of combo thing. Like, yeah, it's creative
like I
skating
get it,
in
like
one way. I
it's
get it in way, but like the idea of like, no, let's go one level higher, deeper, however, whatever my metaphor is falling to bits. But like I Colin Martin just playing with actual movements, doing stuff that feels closer to like trapeze or juggling or like break dancing, like these kind of little optical illusions that people have figured out that can be done with the body is such an interesting because I guess the mushroom guys talk about that a lot where skating's unique in that you have kind of control over all four limbs, really, and we've got these movements available to us that other disciplines don't, because you kind of skateboarding, you got to keep both feet on the board to a certain extent. Your feet spacing is somewhat
Yeah, yeah.
determined. Bike, you got to be holding on to that. Scooters, you got to be riding the little horse around. And rollerblading doesn't have that, you know. It's
We've got our
um
own problems, but
we've oh
that
yeah,
isn't
yeah,
one
yeah,
of
yeah.
them.
Yeah. And where we're probably in a good spot right now is it's looking nice because people are putting a lot of fit and finish on these slightly more experimental thing. Like Colin Martin stuff clicks so well, I think, because he's got a high standard for like how well it has to be executed before
Yeah.
like he'll share it or
You know, he didn't just do it once
yeah.
and he's like splurging that straight onto Instagram. He's like, I'm going to work on this for a while. Who was it? Nate shared a video yesterday and it's Conair Skerritt in the DRC days, and he did that 180 where he 180s the set and it looks like he's going to three it and his head's on this shoulder and it comes back. And I was like, there's so much just in that, you
Yeah.
know. Someone else did one where they did it looked like a 180, but it was a three. Like, there's so much that can kind of still be messed around with that, but you got to have the appetite for it. And I hope that that's kind of where anyone new coming into it would want to pump their time, because some of us, like older dudes, might be a bit stuck in our ways
Hmm.
about kind
Hmm.
of what we do, and we go to the park or we go to the spot and we kind of do what we've always done. That's where I think there's like real legs in skating, but I think it could really do with like a new brain to kind of
Hmm.
take it and run with it. I think that's
Yeah. I think
I would
and he's
hope that's the future.
yeah. Like the people kind of I think I bring him up quite a lot, but I don't even imagine he's that young. He's certainly not young in the same way as like a little kid getting into it, but people like Moopy, like Marius, just even his nice balance of he clearly has done a wee bit of looking at his history, even by the
Yeah.
clothing choices he's choosing to make and some of the references he's making. But like again, it's all fit and finish. It's all little details. It's all making sure every clip has something like
Yeah.
that. That's a little thing like that. That even that is a little philosophy. Does everything somebody chooses to film just needs a detail. Can be
That
nothing. It can be
that
absolutely
shut up
nothing.
Marcus said it was just, I don't think there was a single clip in there that wasn't, they didn't have something about it that made it quite
Novel, yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
Who was it that said it? Was it, it might have been one of the mushroom guys or Joey and Todd, or somebody else that was like, we are, maybe it was Moise, but it was like, we're at the end of an era,
Hmm.
and kind of we spent a long time, we rollerblading spent a long time doing like set slides on the floor, and like we had this whole trend of tricks that we kind of explored for 5 years or something. Some of that was
Hmm.
like a hangover of like Colin Martin's quarter pipe edit for Dirtbox, I
Hmm.
think. Um, and I think someone said we're in a kind of like trendless era now. And at the time it didn't click, but I've been thinking about that quite a lot, about
Hmm.
how rollerblading doesn't have like a kind of an obvious, you know, when Mesmerizing came out and it was kind of like, cool, right, we're doing baggy jeans, there's like wallet chains, people are going pa 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 pa, and it's all like fisheye, and it's like, cool, you know, that sort of thing has got legs for a couple of years and then it starts to look a bit tired or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
And already we're kind of at the end of that, and people are kind of doing lots of weird and interesting, brilliant stuff, but it's not kind of tied together. And in lots of ways, that's really cool. And that kind of mixture of like Flatland and Wizard has become quite mainstream in like aggressive stuff. It's quite acceptable now to kind of, you know, roll on one foot on a ledge. whereas a couple of years ago you probably wouldn't have done that, or 10 years ago you wouldn't have done that.
Hmm. Hmm.
How do you feel about the idea that we're in a trendless era, or are we just waiting for a trend?
Unless it's one of these situations that you kind of can't spot the trends while you're in it in a kind of funny way that fashion always gets that. Like it's often quite hard to draw a cartoon character of the time you're in. But like even in the 90s, like I kind of remember like, all right, there's just this is just a kind of everyone just wears normal clothes right now. And obviously that you can style somebody to look 90s easily now. Like
That's the easiest thing. Yeah.
yeah, early 2000s. So there might be a bit of that. I'm quite obsessed with the the falling apart of any kind of monoculture. Like certainly with music, it comes up an awful lot of there's because you can have access to everything at all times, you lose this kind of shared like I would know, I could tell you all the top 10 songs from my youth just because you hear them because you pick them up through osmosis, and that's not a
Mm,
thing anymore. And I
no.
don't know if there's a wee bit of a lot, like it feels related with skating that like everyone has access to everything. So trends become like memes. They come, they're hot for a minute, everyone gets sick of them in a set. All right, we're doing this one thing today, and then it's like Craft is kind of big for that. Like Craft will do these
Yeah.
kind of grinds where he's holding a foot like he's almost doing another grind, like it's kind of a
Yeah.
wee play on something. And you see it like the next day, there's like five people doing it on Instagram, and then it's kind of he's smart enough that he'll find something else that he'll enjoy exploring. So maybe it's just a bit of that, but maybe when we step back in 5 years' time, it'll be quite clear what was going on. Maybe not. I don't know. I don't know. Like I
No,
don't.
no, maybe you're right. I wonder if when, because there are sort of definite eras when I look back in skating, um, and we're in a kind of post-Valo,
It it
kind of
feels
like
like.
them really dominated it, and now there's this whole thing where there's like all these new brands and there's this kind of explosion of stuff,
Mhm.
but I don't know if there's the kind of industry to support all of it. But
It
in lots
does.
of ways, I think it's quite interesting that there's this like real fragmentation because for a long
Hmm.
time, for quite a few years, it was basically just kind of like there's a really obvious and clear like cultural leader,
Yep.
and it was whatever Julio's kind of vision was. And we really needed that at the time, actually, was someone to be like, cool, cool, cool. No, let me just set the bar here
Hmm.
and we
Hmm.
can kind of build towards that. Um,
It will be they like that's the thing everyone slightly feels like they're waiting on, isn't it? Is them's next move, whether it's going to be a big move or not, and whether it.
I don't know if they can do a big move. It'd be
Yeah.
interesting. Like maybe it's someone else's turn. Maybe they just
Yeah.
become
Yeah.
like baseline of the industry and it's up to everyone else to do something that's kind of different and radical.
Hmm. Hmm.
We don't need more stuff though. It's a
No.
lot of stuff.
No, but yeah, is what we're getting from them, and that might be just a sign that like the bat. It's not like the baton's been passed. It's like the baton's been put down on the floor. If all them do is another 909 in another color with a nice edit to go with it, it's maybe a wee bit like the baton has just been put down on the floor for somebody else.
Maybe the baton's on the table, right?
Somebody else has to, yeah, they've not passed it to anyone, but they're maybe not holding it anymore. I'm not sure. God, I'm bad
Yeah.
for bad metaphors this
No, I think it's
episode.
really interesting because I don't think they need to do anything radical. I think they're already just kind of setting the pace in a really healthy way for the industry.
Hmm.
But there's so much opportunity for kind of like not really other brands as such, but just other kind of like pockets of
Hmm.
skating to kind of build, like you take someone like Sean Kelso who he found a lane and he just went crazy on it for like 25 years. And now it's so untouchable. You
Yeah.
can never, ever, ever no matter what, you could never create another person that can do what he can do, because just such a ridiculous set of circumstances has created him. Um, but there are so many other bits that can be explored, and I hope that people do that. Stop trying to be kind of for the industry, but like, we're going to do this thing really well,
Some
and
crew, some crew like the obvious sign would be like the Korean kids or whatever
yeah,
might be like they'll start getting a kind of a real voice of their own
I hope they
when
do,
all
man.
this
They
talk
deserve it.
that this talent kind of mixes with them becoming like little little kind of teenagers where you want to stamp your identity on the world might be a really nice little thing to see.
You
Um,
can see they're already on that journey. Like,
yeah,
it's so exciting to see it, because it's super healthy. It'd be good for it to be like less US focused as well.
yeah.
Um, the Zoom's about to boot
It's
us,
about to.
so I
Will we
think,
just kind of just leave it at that as a wee kind of thing?
yeah, I guess so.
I guess
Yeah,
so. I guess so. Right, we can
I
figure
feel
out.
like I could go for longer than
No,
these
I
two
know.
30-minute slots that Zoom gives us.
Yes,
Um,
we can look into that. I've got a few ideas that I can talk to you about. But let's go with the philosophy that it's better to just have made something and just go from there and
no,
let
I
it.
agree. I think we just got to follow it. I think with too much of a agenda,
Yeah,
we don't get to just see where it goes. So
yeah,
I
yeah.
prefer this.
Okay, okay, right. Let's call that a day. We'll figure out what to do with it. If anyone has
Yeah.
made it through, I now like feel that we need to talk to an audience. If anyone has made it through this, thank you for listening.
Like, subscribe, buy the merch.
Patreon, yeah. Come on, send us money.
Lovely to
No,
see you, man.
yeah, nice to see you. Right, that was good. I'm glad we finally got round to it. It was hard to
Yeah, me
line up
too.
for a while, but like it's
It
hopefully
was.
broken some kind of break that we had. Right, see you
See you
later.
tomorrow.
Bye.